Hey, how y'all doing? This will be day 3 of my version of the push-up challenge. Um, in my truck, but not driving, so I can actually look at the camera for once. Decided to go a little different route with this particular video. Instead of talking about ways to cope, possibly to make it a little bit easier for people to identify and deal with whatever demons they might have, talk about some things that might have, could have, did cause my own personal demons. Um, Possibly, but I don't know that it necessarily caused uh, the depression, anxiety that I suffer from as part of my PTSD. Um, Ironically, roughly 24 years ago, within a week, this particular instance happened. Um, I was in my second week of basic training and got pulled out of a training class by my team member, which was my sister flight's TI training instructor. Typically, in this stage, you're just starting to get to the point where you're going to start being held accountable for anything that's messed up. And of course, it's basic training, so you're scared half to death that anything you do, you're going to get washed back or this, that, and the other. Well, my team leader comes and gets me out of the class and says, well, son, we need to go see the section supervisor. And at this point, I'm about to fill my britches, thinking, yes, I'm certain I'm getting washed back. I'm screwed. I don't even know what I did. Crap. And so I gathered up my things and we went over to the section supervisor's office and stepped into his office, reported in. Those Air Force members all remember, sir or ma'am, in my own case, Airman Taft reports as ordered. Standing at the position of attention. And the section supervisor, a master sergeant, will not say his name because I don't think it's appropriate to bring out names of other people without at least talking to them about it. But he looks at me and says, young man, you need to sit down. And there was a couch right behind me, and emotionally, I hit the floor. I was standing upright, but I knew something really bad had happened, and I was about to get really bad news. So I took off my canteen and web belt, and I had my portfolio, and I sat down. And my first instinct was to think that my father had died, had had a heart attack, something along those lines. Dad has historically had high blood pressure, and that's just the first thing that popped in my mind. And then he told me, he says, son, your mother was killed in a car accident today. Now these are your options. And I stopped him. I said, I'm going home. And I think he was going to lay out options, I think. And one of those would be to just separate. 2 weeks in, either way. But that, to me, was not an option. The way I was raised with my parents, it didn't happen. You did not quit. If you started something, by God, you finished it. It didn't matter if it was a sport, a class, anything. Sports, you started the season, you finished the season. Because you said you would. So to me, that wasn't even an option. 18 years old, 2 weeks after I turned 18, roughly. And here I sat going, oh, crap. So the experience I had after this was absolutely phenomenal. As far as getting myself ready to get on a plane to go home on leave. I was allowed to take 5 days of leave to go home and be at my mother's funeral. However, I was required to travel in my Blues uniform, which I had not received yet. That was later in week 2, sometimes week 3. And my my team leader took me in his own personal vehicle over to where they tailored your uniforms and issued them to you and everything. And there was already 2 or 3 flights, and you figure roughly 60 people per flight that were in there being fitted. And I was walked right straight to the front of the line. I mean, bam, up on a table. get measured, bring out a uniform, pinned, make certain everything's good, marked, good to go. In literally less than 30 minutes, I was in and out with a full tailored uniform, ready to go. All of the accoutrements I needed, my rank insignia, this, that, and the other, da-da-da-da. Now, granted, I wasn't Airman Basic, so there was no rank. However, the rest of the ornamentation that was required for the uniform given to me, out the door. Bam, here you go, see ya. Which, if anybody's been around sewing, that's not an easy task. So these people absolutely bent over backwards to get me going. From there, I was taken to the Red Cross office so that I could get a zero interest loan so that I could pay for my plane tickets to fly home. Speaking of which, anybody, if you have members, family members, in the military, anything, way, shape, or form, that organization absolutely bends over backwards to do everything they can do. I was in and out of the Red Cross office in like 20 minutes with a check for the amount I needed for my round trip plane tickets to get me back home to Illinois and get me back down to Texas. I was also able to coordinate, and because my brother Lon was at training at Randolph Airfield, which is tied in, and we managed to make arrangements to have the same flights up there. Now, return flights were different, but here nor there. But just one of those traumatic moments in my life. Really don't think it was necessarily what caused my depression, anxiety, PTSD, anything of that nature, but one of those things. The reason I bring it up is you can't necessarily judge yourself on what will be that defining moment, the cause of your anxiety, depression, you name it. It's different for everybody. Case in point, we had early on in the last Gulf War, we had two guys that deployed out of our shop when I was stationed at Whiteman, and this was like way early stages. There was no such thing as up armored vehicles. There was nothing. And these guys were literally going in with flak vests. Those that don't know what a flak vest is, it is soft Kevlar armor. They're heavy, they're bulky, they're hot, but they're not really worth a damn at doing anything other than making you sweat. They had that, and they had helmets. When they come back, the one was very different. Not the same. And what they were doing convoys and stuff like that, it was very, very, very stressful to him. The other, like he'd done a day at the beach. Does it necessarily make it right or wrong, or should one be more traumatized than the other? That's all in your head. Unfortunately, that's where the demons live, or where they're created, and your interpretation of it. Now, sometimes they might be labeled as a drama queen or any other sort of derogatory, this, that, and the other, but it's not really fair to judge them that way, because everybody's different. There's things that I've had happen in my life, I've done, that did not faze me a bit and would absolutely floor somebody else. Don't make little of what happened to you. Don't blow it out of proportion, but don't make little of it. And please, God, do not try and make little or make light of what has happened to somebody else. It may seem silly, it may seem funny, it may seem stupid, but to them it's not. So, alright, we'll continue on. Thank you all for the support of these videos. Plan on at least going through day 22. Hopefully I can keep going with content. YouTube channel, anybody out there, please feel free to share. Also, if you suffer from these sort of circumstances and you would like to post a video, please do so. You can put it on, send it to me. I'll put it on my page. I'll put it on the YouTube channel. Part of the point of this is for people to see that, hey, I'm not the only one. And the more of us that are willing to share, to talk about this, possibly that will gain traction and more people will talk. Hopefully people that have not necessarily started dealing with their demons yet, this is the stepping stone to get them, even if it's just talking about it. Who knows? But y'all have a good night. Bye.